We are back with rest in the Proverbs. We're going to take a look at what the Proverbs have to say about resting after last week's working. So let's take a look at Proverbs chapter 3. Austin, would you care to read Proverbs 3:21 through 26?
I will. My son, do not lose sight of these. Keep sound wisdom and discretion, and they will be life for your soul and adornment for your neck. Then you will walk on your way securely, and your foot will not stumble. If you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. Do not be afraid of sudden terror or of the ruin of the wicked when it comes, for the Lord will be your confidence and will keep your foot from being caught.
All right. So it's something that I think all of us noted as we were talking about this before was that, there's not any, it seems like there's two or three very specific proverbs when it comes to rest, but this is, I think, probably the one where you get the most discussion on it. And it sort of walks through several different places. So when you hear all of those verses, not letting this vanish from your sight is what my translation said. What do you want to take away from reading the scripture? What do you want to, pack up and not lose sight of?
I mean, I keep going back to our culture in such a way prioritizes work, and we come back to you need to work hard. That's what we were talking about in the previous video, but you also need to rest well. Like there has to be a balance struck here, because if you work all the time and there is no rest, you burn out or you're less effective in the work that you are doing. And if you rest all the time, that's just called sluggard. The fun word we used last week. So.
Yeah, well, that's and that you got those extremes. On the one side of like too much rest, laziness. On the side of too much diligence or work, workaholism or whatever you call it. But I mean, when you look at that and you look at what you have here, I think part of the problem we have with too much work is this sense of like what we're telling ourselves, like, well, I've got to like pass something down to my family, like I got to have something, I want their life to be better than mine before, so I'm going to work real hard to do that, and I'm going to sacrifice, I'm going to spend the long hours, and there's a certain degree that you absolutely must do that in the season, as we talked about last week again, like when the harvest comes, like you better be working. But there's also that sense that you destroy and you show that you actually have no confidence. And what speaks to me is when it says, do not be afraid of the terror or the ruin or the sudden terror of the ruin of the wicked when it comes. Like those things will inevitably come, for the Lord will be your confidence. In that sense that if you can never rest, you have placed your confidence in something else other than the Lord. Because the Lord himself, in 7 days, on the 6 days he created, and the seventh day he rested. God himself sat and looked and enjoyed creation, and the concept is foreign to us. And I don't know how God rests, God who sustains all being and who holds everything together, and yet God rests. And so that's where our confidence comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that example that's put forth there of God resting, it's not like he was out digging a ditch or toiling away. He was speaking creation into existence. But to me, that example that he set was, I'm going to take a day and just not do anything, just relax. And I had a friend that I went to seminary with that was Jewish, and I asked him about what do you do on your Sabbath days? And he said, we don't drive. He said we make sure that we have groceries in the house Thursday and Friday, and he said we don't go anywhere. He said, and if we do go somewhere, it's very intentional, where we'll go for a walk and we walk together as a family. I think rest shouldn't be confused with not working. We shouldn't do anything. It's the diligence part goes to that.
Exactly, and that's what I was going to say. Sabbath keeping is a diligent behavior, because you have to plan ahead. You have to you even do that. I mean, we have the idea of rest of just like total lay back, like zero, vegetative state, no cares in the world. And there's I can't remember who said this once, but there's the idea of there's different types of, just like we have different types of health and nutritional degrees with food. You've got things that are actually healthy and good for you to eat, and then junk food, there's kind of the same degree with rest, and there's really the same degree with work too, where you're going to work again that is diligent and good, sustains and is something that upholds you. Same with rest, where like you can go if your desire for rest is merely a self pursuit, a self interest, and there's some danger in the self care movement today. That's not to say all is bad with it, but there's a danger in that. That again, like rest is intentional. It is it's an expression, continued expression of diligence. I like that.
Yep. Yeah. It takes planning. It takes, commitment to say this, and really to be set up to where, when we go on vacation, I'm always frustrated because we go to the beach once a year, and when we get there, my wife and sometimes if my mother-in-law goes with us, they go off to the store and then they buy a bunch of stuff and there's chaos. It's just, the boys are running around like they're gone. There's all this stuff that's going on. But that first day of unpacking everything, putting it where it needs to be at, going to the store, getting food so that, we don't have to leave to go to the store all the time. It's that a little bit of work in the beginning allows us to have a restful vacation to where, if I come back from the pool and I say, hey man, I want a snack, I know exactly where it is. If I say, hey, we're going to go out to eat, I'm going to get dressed, I know where my clothes are. Resting takes a little bit of effort to plan, and once it's set up, then you can just enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think that's a big one. So.
And for me, just talking about this subject, for me personally, rest is something that I struggle with in regards to just like, I feel for me, I always have to I always want to be doing something. Even on days where like we don't really have anything like exactly planned, I end up like getting my wife Mandy I'm like, all right, let's go out hiking today, or let's go do something fun, whatever. And days where she's like, I just want to stay home, like, yeah. And for me, it's just something I personally struggle with, where like I don't like just sitting and not just sitting and since like sitting on the couch, but just not doing anything and just being delighted in God and what He's blessed with in my family and stuff. As for me, I really do struggle with it. It's something that I'm going to have to be a lot more intentional in my own life, because I don't find that so others. And then what ends up really happening is I keep on doing a whole bunch of stuff, and then I start feeling like burnt out. But then instead of like taking the time to just like not do anything, then I just like keep on doing more and more, thinking that that's what I need.
And I think that's what people get wrapped up in, is that it's the constant rat race. They're chasing wealth. They're chasing, and sometimes they're chasing rest. Like, I want to do something, so let's go somewhere. And they don't just sit and enjoy it. And that chase or the pursuit of anything is going to drag you down. In fact, that's what Proverbs 23 verses 4 and 5 says. Bryce, you wanna read that?
Yeah. All right. Do not toil to acquire wealth. Be discerning enough to desist. When your eyes light on it, it is gone, for suddenly it sprouts wings, flying like an eagle toward heaven.
All right. My translation says, don't weary yourself to gain wealth. Setting your eyes on it, it's already gone. If you're constantly chasing, you're just tired from that constant going and doing, and there's no way you can rest from that.
Mine says in verse 4, the first part says, don't wear yourself out to get rich. And then it says, do not trust your own cleverness.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've been rebuked. I feel that.
It's such a time to be filled up. Because a lot of times when I need rest, it makes it harder for me to not just to pour myself out, but also to resist temptation, to not, because it's oftentimes when I'm exhausted that it seems like the temptations seem the heaviest. But then when I rest and I get refilled and I just spend time not thinking even about all the things I have to do, but just taking that time to just be still in God and just, listen to what He has to say and what He wants me to hear that day of rest, then, I come back a lot stronger, a lot, more impactful to people that to students and the people that I have in contact. And then it also makes it easier to resist temptation because I'm rested.
Yeah.
Physically, but also spiritually.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good distinction too, is that it's not just go sit down and take a nap,
Yeah.
but what refreshes you, what reinvigorates you after you feel kind of down. In fact, I know this is kind of off the cuff, but let me do this. Austin, if somebody said you have the whole day off and you can do whatever you want, what would be most restful for you? Like if you could choose anything.
I mean, to be honest, here lately, it has been taking the time to be intentional about what we eat. When Vivian and I just have time, we'll try to plan out our meals a little bit better. We will typically go for a walk in the evening, and during the day it may be some time to watch TV, it may be some time to read a book or do something else. But for the most part, for me, it has to do with the pacing of things.
Mm-hmm.
The things are spread out enough that it's not like, oh, I got to get from this to that and the other thing.
Yeah.
It's no, this day could have something going later on, but for me, another big one is to not have my cell phone on me or
That's a big
me
one.
checking, because that's always like, when you get to that point where you get that like phantom pulse, phantom pulse in your leg that you're like, oh, my phone just buzzed, and when you don't have that phone on you and you have that happen, you're like, ooh, I'm addicted.
Yeah,
That's a problem.
Yeah,
That's a problem.
Drew, what would, like if you have a day and so you have the whole time to yourself, what are you gonna do?
I would say probably fishing with my wife specifically. I mean, I guess I just been going a lot with her during this season because she's been laid off, but that's just been really, because it's the cell phone thing too. Like I'm on the lake, like there's no reception anyway, so our phones they go into the waterproof thing, and and it's just nice. It just feels really unplugged. I'm focused on fishing, and it provides an opportunity for us to sit and talk about conversation we may not have otherwise. But and then if it's just me by myself, there's a lot of things that sort of fill me up that way, make me feel rested. Going on long drives, just going out and hiking to a destination. I'm not a big hiker for hiking's sake. I don't want to just go and walk and do cardio for no reason. I like it when there's a vista at the end. I walk for a reason. There's something there to look at and see and enjoy. So yeah,
That's cool. Joey, what's your idea of rest?
Yeah, I was afraid you'd ask me. But,
Splitting wood, I assume.
There's some element of that. Like
Yeah.
there's a certain degree for me, like I have to have that margin you kind of talked about a little bit, because like I need to clean my shop and do a little bit of work in there, which is still kind of work to a degree, but there's a creative element of it. So for me, I typically involve some sort of creative element in what I do. That's always been a part of what I am. So it might end up looking like work, for other people, but like that's part of where I have to have enough margin in my life where I'm taking care of the things that I need. So for me, it'd be that. I mean, fishing's a big part of it. Learning what that looks like now with family, where we're participating in those things together. My kids are still young, but we're sort of phasing into where they can do things a little bit more on their own. Josie can hike on her own, and Maisie, I kind of have to pull her along or carry her sometimes, but we make that work. And so yeah, those are, like I said, the creative element for me, and then just enjoying my family is the other part of it, where it can be unstructured and a little bit controlled by them too. Like let them kind of have, take some of that.
I think you bring up a good element and a reminder that Sabbath is about ceasing from your normal work.
Yes.
It doesn't mean you're not doing anything. Going back to that vegetative state idea.
Well,
you're not a professional lumberjack.
Yeah.
So
you are
for you to
I just play one on TV.
You're not primarily employed by lumberjackitude. So to take the time and do that is to cease. Your mind isn't engaged in the exact same way it's been engaged the past 6 days. you detach
That's-
it from there. And
That's part of what's important, I think, for a 2-day weekend as well, that we have to, like, part of why we've done that is, especially as we move as a society that works outside of the home, part of that is home tending on one of those days where you are able to focus on taking care of that, doing the honeydew projects, like I said, cleaning your shop, organizing things. Like, there's a certain extent that's extremely valuable as we've gone to a society that has more leisure time and yet doesn't work at home and has those other elements. And so when you look at like the Sabbath, it was one day, but so again, like that one day though, you're at home all the time. Like your life was taking care of those things. And so there's again that rhythm to it and margin that's very important. But
yeah. I think that's good. I know you mentioned hiking and spending time with your family. Is there anything particular that you guys do that that's restful for you, that helps you unplug and not get burned out?
Yeah. Probably a big one. I don't do it often, but maybe once a week. I end up taking a nap.
That's good.
I'm usually probably on Sunday after we get home from church and eat lunch and stuff like that. And that's always been pretty beneficial for me, not just for my body, but it kind of just helps my mind. And instead I wake up, just feeling refreshed, and a lot of things that I might have had on my mind earlier in the day is kind of like, it's not that big of a deal.
you just work through it.
Yeah, I know. Just on a personal note, when we get together as ministers, I think Joey is going to start back up a ministers gathering at the church camp, and I really appreciate time spent with guys that have the same heart and passion that I do. And I know when we meet, whether it's one-on-one or in a big group, for me, I walk away feeling refreshed and reinvigorated. I'm ready to go do something. And it's not just hey, we went out to eat, or we, did something fun. It was a sharing where people, we bond over things. And when you go around the room and you look at what makes us happy is, meal planning, not something I expected, to come from Austin, but that's something you did.
It's a recent development.
It's new. It's exciting.
Trying this new thing. We had never heard of it before, but eating healthy food is actually healthy for you.
It's good for you.
I have had more
shocked.
salads in the past 6 months than I'd had in the 10 years before that.
Good for you.
Not kidding at all. It's crazy. It's great. Try a vegetable. It's insane.
It's
It won't taste as good at first, but keep going.
The subtitle of this video is "Eat a Vegetable."
Yeah, eat
Right.
a vegetable. Rest, eat a vegetable. You can take a nap and you can have some carrots. That would be
That'd be good for us.
that's the
From fast
takeaway. If you don't
food.
get anything else out of this, that's what it is. But you look around this table and you see a lot of different things that we all enjoy doing, and yet it's because they are creative. They are detaching from the norm and trying something different. And I think that is the ability to detach from life, from struggles, from work, from whatever is dragging you down is big. And to kind of add the spiritual aspect to it, the one thing that allows all of us to do that should be our faith in God, is that no matter how bad this world gets, we can rest in the fact that we are children of the Most High King. And I kind of want to close with 19:23. Joey, will you read Proverbs 19:23?
Yes, the fear of the Lord leads to life, and whoever has it rests satisfied. He will not be visited by harm.
All right. My translation says, the fear of the Lord leads to life, so that one may sleep satisfied, untouched by evil. Man, that is that's restful for me to hear.
Yeah.
Is that no matter how bad life gets, no matter how horrible our circumstances are, and no matter how much we have to do work-wise or how much time we spend with our families and rest, the true peace and comfort comes from knowing Christ as your Lord and Savior.
And I think it's interesting because again, we want to pull this as like a promise. So like the Lord told me, if I just had fear of God, I wouldn't be visited by harm. And I don't think it's, again, I think it ends up becoming something of a degree of you're flourishing as a human. And so even though we've all talked personally and shared with one another how difficult ministry and leading churches through the COVID-19 and then and just June 2020, holy mackerel, there's a certain extent that we are I am visited by that, I see this, but it doesn't hit, it doesn't cut me down. It doesn't take you out. It doesn't destroy you. That flourishing as especially for us in the context of being ministers, like that's something that we are strengthened in that, and that rest is a confidence that we have in God. What my friend Jared says, one thing he says, talking about, how in pastoral ministry many times ministers feel like they have to just go, like their parishioners, people in our church expect me to like be the hard worker and things like that, and he'll make the comment that the man who is busy 90 hours a week, gets praise from everyone except Jesus and his family, like that those very closest to him and that he should be closest to. We have to remember that Christ himself rested, and Christ himself would embody Proverbs 19:23, and Christ himself was visited by harm, and he's life in like the very life and breath of God. I mean, we see that in him, and so that's the picture that is drawn to my mind of Proverbs 19:23 is of Jesus.
Absolutely.
My mind always goes back to something I remember my dad saying in ministry when I was very young was, if there's a lot of times in ministry that if you don't get out of town, you won't get out of the office. And so there are times where you just kind of have to disappear a little bit, kind of fall off the face of the earth. So that's just kind of the like large chunks of rest that I seek out. But another little piece for me is I kind of rebel against the busyness is better mentality.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, I try my best to work hard, but not look like I'm working hard.
Yeah.
Because if I am working hard and every time somebody says, "Hey brother, how are you?" and I say, "Been busy," then they'll think, yeah, he doesn't have time for my problems. He doesn't have time to hear from me. He doesn't have time to counsel us. He doesn't have,
I hear that.
and if I appear busy, which is the priority in most of our culture, if I appear busy, I can't actually do what I need to do in ministry and serve people.
You can also warn people that I'm busy.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
when that's what we like to use, like to just shuffle off any responsibilities or any sense of anyone having control over a schedule. Like, no, I'm really busy, and that leads to what we're talking about, like talking about work rather than actually doing it.
Yep, and I think that's the word intentionality. I think is spread over this and our work is being intentional about how we work. Is it for the Lord, and how we rest am I intentionally setting aside time to rest? I like the idea of getting out of town, and that's not just in ministry. I think it's easy to, I'm going to go home tonight. It's Friday. I got off work a little bit early. I'm going to spend some time in the yard. I'm going to relax. And the next thing you know, you're doing yard work and you're talking to neighbors. And there's, to say, I'm going to get out of town. I'm going to get outside of my normal way of doing things. It's good to go out, like say on a hiking trail, go look at nature and something beautiful. And you're not in the same place. That's why I've enjoyed our vacations over the last few years since I've gotten married, is we haven't went to the same place, but we've been to the beach in Gulf Shores, in Panama City. We've been to Navarre the last couple. It's something different. We go somewhere different where you're exploring. There's, kind of an idea of like, oh, what's going to go on here, but it's relaxing. And, that takes planning to say I'm going to do all my work ahead of time so that I have this time free. But coming back and just saying, I'm going to be at peace no matter what. Whether I'm on a beach or whether I'm in the office, whether, I'm out in the yard working, because God is God and I'm his servant. So when you put all those aspects together, I think it's very good for us to see rest is needed, and it probably takes more work to actually rest, which sounds counterintuitive, but you have to set out those groundwork.
It's diligence.
Absolutely. So you got any closing thoughts? I don't want to cut anybody off.
I feel like I may be overstating this, but I feel like 10%, every minister has about 10% of them that is ready to just be a garbage man. That's like, if I could get to the end of a work day and keep work at work and be done and wash my hands and cleanse it for the day and be, everything would be fine. But finding that work rest balance when you don't have a punch clock to tell you,
right.
For not just in ministry, but in anybody that has one of those kind of 24-hour sort of jobs that feels like, well, there's always one more thing I could have done, or one more, You know, whether it's one more commentary I could have read in preparation for that sermon, or it's, you know, one more call I could have made to make another sale or something like that. When you don't have that, there's a part that's always ready to just be like, if I could just hang it up at the end of the day, I would. And that part of you, we call it rest, and it's crying out. It is crying out for rest.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. And to me, the only way we do that is at some point saying, I've done all I can do today.
Yeah.
The rest is in God's hands. I trust Him. You know, I'm, Lord, this is all you. You know, I did my part. So, well, I hope you enjoy this. This has been really good for us. It's been restful and rejuvenated since we've talked here. So, we'll hopefully see you next time. I'm looking forward to having more of these.